I used to believe that every phenomenon could be measured, every emotion was just a chemical reaction, and death was simply the end of biological function. No soul, no light, no other side. I held on to that belief through 37 years of living in a world of numbers, scientific laws, and empirical evidence. My name is Dr. Evelyn Cross, a neuroscientist working for a government agency specializing in the study of consciousness, though only within the realm of neurophysiology. To me, consciousness was nothing more than a byproduct of the brain. When the brain dies, consciousness shuts off. Like turning off a flashlight, the light disappears. Simple, clear, emotionless. But there was one thing I kept ignoring deliberately. No matter how well I understood the mechanisms of the brain, I couldn't explain that feeling. The one that came back every night after my mother passed away. As if someone was sitting beside my bed, motionless, silent, yet so palpably present I could barely breathe. I told myself it was psychological conditioning, a serotonin imbalance, a side effect of grief-induced insomnia. But deep down I knew. There was something that didn't belong in a lab report. I buried it, the way scientists often do when emotion conflicts with method. I chose formulas over faith, the comfort of certainty over the discomfort of the unknown. I threw myself into research, lectures, and programs preaching objective truth. And I was good at it, respected, accomplished. I told myself that if I could just achieve enough, that hollow ache would disappear. But strangely, the further I advanced, the more I felt an emptiness I couldn't name, like standing in a brightly lit room and still feeling cold. I watched colleagues talk excitedly about machines that could one day replace the mind, and I nodded along. But inside, a quiet voice would whisper, "What about memory? What about love? What about pain that can't be measured?" I silenced it. I kept running. Until one day, my body spoke the truth not with a scream, but with a quiet collapse. The pain struck like lightning, sharp, relentless. Pressure surged through my chest, my heart raced, then dropped. And I remember it so vividly. In that moment before everything went dark, I didn't think about equations, research, or awards. I thought about my mother, a blurry image of her in our old kitchen. Her laughter, the warmth of her hand on my shoulder one autumn afternoon when I was 10. And then nothing. No hospital room. No monitors. No Dr. Evelyn Cross, the skeptic, the scientist, the rational mind. All of it vanished. I had died. In the most literal clinical sense, the very kind of death I used to explain to others in sterile language and PowerPoint slides. But what happened next shattered everything I believed. I found myself in another realm, a space that belonged neither to light nor to darkness. A presence filled the air, loving, expansive, utterly still. Words fall short. It was not a place you see, but a place you feel with every part of your being. And that was only the beginning. I once believed that death was the end, but what I witnessed next made me realize I had never truly lived. In the next part, I'll tell you about that realm, a place where I was no longer a scientist, but a soul shown the full truth. The kind of truth that rewrites everything. Are you ready to hear it? I don't know exactly when I left my body. There was no click, no flash of light, no plunge into darkness. I was simply no longer there, and yet somehow I was everywhere at once. I no longer perceived through eyes or ears or skin. I had no shape, no form, yet I felt more real, more me, than I ever had in my entire life. I saw myself lying motionless in a cold, white hospital room, tubes and wires covering my body. I heard nurses shouting. I watched a doctor performing chest compressions. And I was there. Or more accurately, I was around them, through them, woven into everything. I wasn't afraid. That was the strange part. There was no fear, no panic, no sorrow, no regret. There was only one thing, absolute peace. Not silence as we know it, but a stillness that ran deeper than thought itself. It was the kind of quiet that lives underneath every noise, every emotion, every unfinished sentence of the soul. I drifted, not flying, because there was no up or down, no left or right. I was being carried gently, as if by an invisible current pulling me back to where I had always belonged. Then something even stranger happened. I began to see everything from every angle, all at once. There were no blind spots, no shadows. A glass in the far corner of the room. I saw the bottom of it. A wall. I saw through it. But more than just sight, I felt what everyone in that room was feeling. The laser-focused urgency of the doctor trying to keep me alive. The quiet grief of a nurse wiping away a single tear. And just outside the door, my husband, his fists pounding the wall in agony, lost in helpless rage. I wasn't a single person anymore. I had become a part of everything. And then in the stillness, a voice emerged not as sound, but as pure presence, as thought woven straight into my being. It didn't speak in words, didn't identify itself, didn't demand anything. It simply was. But I understood. This was a presence far wiser than I, more loving than I had ever been, and so intimately familiar that I broke into tears. Without knowing why, I remembered being a child, afraid of the dark, and the feeling of my mother holding me close, warm and safe, in a way that felt eternal. That's exactly what this was. Only deeper, wider, more unconditional. And then that presence, without sound or shape, asked me, "What have you understood about life?" I couldn't answer. I was Dr. Evelyn Cross, the one who had lectured to hundreds of students, published papers, and spoken at global conferences, and I couldn't answer what seemed like the simplest question. Because in that moment, I saw it all. Everything I had once believed to be knowledge was just ink on paper. I had never truly lived. I had only analyzed. And then, that presence showed me something. The first of many revelations that would forever change the way I understood myself, humanity, and the entire universe. At first, I thought this might be a hallucination, some final chemical firework before the brain shuts down. But what I saw next was not imagination. It was true. And that truth unraveled everything I had built my life around. Have you ever seen yourself through someone else's eyes, not metaphorically, but truly? Stay with me. That moment is coming. I don't remember how I moved. There were no footsteps, no direction, just a seamless gliding through a weightless feeling, as if every atom of my being had been gently lifted away from the heavy mass called a body. And then, I found myself standing before something. Not a place in the physical sense. No walls, no ceiling, no defined boundaries. But I knew with a kind of understanding that doesn't need explanation, that this was where the truth would be revealed. They call it a life review. I had come across the concept in a few NDE reports before and scoffed, chalking it up to nothing more than a dying brain's last flickers. But when it happened to me, nothing resembled what I had imagined. I didn't watch my life like a movie. I relived it, completely. And the pain didn't come from the mistakes I had made. It came from having to feel them, from the perspective of the people I had affected. When I spoke harshly to a student, I felt her shrink inside, question her worth, leave the class, and not return to school for 3 years. When I ignored my sister's call for help because I was busy finishing a paper, I felt her loneliness, her silent heartbreak, her quiet sigh that I had once brushed off, now echoing inside me like an alarm bell I couldn't shut out. I saw the moments I stayed silent, when I should have spoken words of love, words of apology, words of thanks. I saw how the tiniest choices had rippled into lives I never imagined touching. There was no punishment, no judgment, no courtroom, no verdict. But I felt everything. No one made me feel regret. It was the overwhelming presence of unconditional love that surrounded me in that moment, that made my heart break wide open. Because I realized I had lived dry. I once thought living well meant achieving enough, behaving ethically, and following the rules. But now, here I saw that only one thing truly remained, the impact I had on the hearts of others. I wasn't asked, "What did you accomplish?" I was asked, "How did you love?" And I couldn't answer. I used to laugh when people said, "Everything is energy." But now I could see it in every thought, every word, every action I had ever made send out ripples of energy, swirling through the lives of those I touched, then radiating further outward. A chain reaction like falling dominoes, and I was one of the links. I, the scientist who believed she was standing outside the game of spirituality, had always been at the very center of it. I broke down, but no tears fell. Instead, a wave of something rose inside me, overwhelming, crashing, then dissolving into the light that surrounded me. And that light said nothing. It simply remained, present, loving, without condition, without judgment, without needing a reason. And I understood. I understood that I was being seen, not the way I had ever seen myself, nor the way I had looked at others, but in a way I had never known was possible, with eyes made of grace. I thought that was the climax. But the presence hadn't left. It had something more to show me. Not about me, but about the soul, about the place I had come from, about why I was here on this earth, and about something so deeply sacred that even now, after returning, I still cannot find words for it, only a trembling in my heart whenever I remember. Are you ready to hear the rest? Because the truth is about to step out of its final hiding place. I once believed that light was merely a physical phenomenon. It had wavelengths, photons, velocity, and measurable formulas that could be studied and charted. But the light I was approaching in that moment defied all of that. It didn't emanate from a source. It was a presence. It wasn't blinding. It wasn't harsh. It didn't push me back. Quite the opposite. It drew me in with a kind of love that made me want to dissolve into it completely. And the closer I came, the more I sensed something unbelievable. This light was aware of me. It knew I was approaching. It reminded me, and I somehow remembered it, not with my logical mind, but with something deeper, something that had no name, a memory beyond time, a memory of the soul. Inside that light, I saw familiar fragments of myself, as if I had once belonged to it, or perhaps it had once belonged to me. And then, without words, without sound, it placed a question inside me. Do you remember why you came to Earth? I was speechless. I had never asked that. I had spent years asking how to succeed, how to earn my PhD, how to gain recognition. But I had never once stopped to ask, why am I here at all? The light didn't force an answer. It simply unveiled a stream of images, each like a veil being gently lifted. I saw myself before I was born, in another realm of light, surrounded by other souls preparing, choosing, agreeing, and even strangely excited. I had chosen to come to Earth, not to prove anything, but to experience something I could only experience in a physical world: pain, forgetfulness, and the chance to remember again. I had forgotten, and that forgetting was part of the plan, because if I had remembered from the start that I was made of light, I never would have learned the sacred lessons hidden inside the dark. I had chosen my family. I had chosen my circumstances. And now, I was beginning to remember why. I had chosen even those who would one day hurt me, so that I could learn forgiveness. I saw souls circling one another like clusters of intelligent light, communicating not with words, but with frequencies and deep knowing. And I understood then, the soul has no gender, no age, no boundary. One soul who was your mother, in a past life, might return as your child in this one. A soul who had once been your enemy might reappear as your guide. It was all part of a vast, spiraling web, a dance of conscious evolution unfolding through time and dimension. And I had forgotten all of it the moment I was born, as if the play had begun with the curtain drawn shut. I saw myself entering into what can only be described as a soul agreement, not signed with ink or words, but sealed with vibration. I had agreed to come here to learn about love, even when it didn't look like anything I'd read in a textbook. I had agreed to feel pain, so I could understand compassion. I had agreed to be lost so I could one day find my way back to myself. And when the light asked me once more, "Do you still believe death is the end?" I laughed through my tears. Death is just a door, a pause, a return point, a sacred moment where the soul remembers what the body had forgotten, that we are so much more than flesh and neurons. I realized that the light was me, a higher version of me. My original self, the boundless soul, is untouched by physical limitations. It didn't command me to stay. It didn't tell me to return. It gave me what I never realized I always had, the power to choose. And just as I had chosen to come to Earth the first time, I chose again. This time, not out of fear of death, but because for the first time in my existence, I truly wanted to live. But before I returned, I was shown one last thing. A vision so breathtaking, so overwhelming, it took my breath away. It wasn't just about me. It was about all of us. A sweeping, divine mosaic, the hidden blueprint of humanity. What I saw was a truth buried for thousands of years. Are you ready? Because what comes next may forever change the way you see everything. I thought I knew a lot. Enough to be called a doctor. Enough to stand at the front of a lecture hall. Enough to analyze the brain, memory, and human emotion as chemical reactions replicable in a lab. But what I saw in that moment shattered everything I believed, like a fine layer of dust swept off the surface of a bottomless ocean. Because that light, after helping me remember who I truly was, opened yet another dimension. And there, I was shown a vision of the universe not in images, but in a kind of simultaneous knowing, a deep understanding beyond words or logic, where truth was simply felt. I saw Earth not as an object, but as a living being. It breathed. It pulsed. Energy flowed through it like blood through veins. I saw human beings as tiny points of light, each carrying a different frequency, vibrating with every thought, every feeling. And then I saw a vast network of light, connecting all people, animals, plants, even life forms I'd never seen or named. A shimmering web of interwoven strands, alive and radiant. And then I saw something that broke my heart. Every time a person fell into despair, the light around them dimmed, shrank. But each time they chose to love, to forgive, to accept themselves, that light surged outward, touching others, reigniting the glow in souls that were fading. I understood, then, that we are not alone. We are not just fleeting individuals who come and go. We are essential threads in the fabric of a conscious, evolving universe. I saw souls beyond Earth watching us, not with judgment, but with pure, unwavering love. They didn't intervene. They didn't rescue. They didn't force. They were waiting for us to remember, to awaken on our own. That vision didn't just show me beauty. It showed me something deeply painful, dense layers of fear, hatred, and numbness wrapping around the earth. That energy was dimming our collective light. It was causing souls to forget who they were, to see each other as enemies, to live for competition, for validation, for survival rather than for life itself. And I realized, the light never disappears. It only gets covered. By choice. Every human choice to forgive or to blame, to love or to control, to give thanks or to demand adds a brick to the collective structure humanity is building. And the light, with a resonance beyond language, whispered to me, if one person remembers who they are, hundreds more will begin to remember too. I am Evelyn, the scientist who once dismissed the soul as fantasy, and in that moment, I no longer doubted. Not because I had been persuaded, but because I had seen. I had moved through that map of energy. I had witnessed every thought as a ripple, radiating outward into the unseen. I saw a child crying in solitude, and how the quiet love from a stranger's heart reached across space and soothed that ache. I saw people who had lost loved ones remain connected not through words, but through presence. Pure, unrestricted, undeniable presence. I saw that death is not the end, but a doorway, and that the soul, this eternal, indestructible essence, is never lost. I know some will say it was all a hallucination, but what I brought back wasn't theory. It was a new self, a mind turned inside out. And when I woke back in my body, when the machines signaled that I was alive again, my first response wasn't disbelief. It was tears. Tears of gratitude. Because I was given another chance not just to exist, but to live, truly live, through the eyes of the soul. But what happened next? Did I manage to carry that light into everyday life? Or did the weight of the material world make me forget all over again? The answer may surprise you. Walk with me a little further, because what came after may matter even more than what I saw beyond the veil. I opened my eyes not all at once, but slowly, as if my vision had to relearn how to see the world. Everything was blurry. Sounds echoed like they were coming from far away. I heard someone calling my name, anxious and trembling. I couldn't speak, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I had come back. My body ached. It was heavy, limited, confined, but my heart was not. Something in me had changed forever. I was no longer the old Evelyn, the scientist who once saw life as a series of biological reactions and death as the final full stop. I had crossed that line, and the hardest part wasn't dying. It was coming back. The world hadn't changed. The machines still beeped. Fluorescent lights still buzzed. Nurses hurried through cold hallways. News of war still played in the background. Social media still raged with arguments. People still rushed through life without seeing one another. But I was no longer the same. Every pair of eyes I met seemed to emit a signal. I could feel the emotions underneath: fear, grief, hidden longings for love that people no longer dared to voice. I saw a colleague, bright and chatty on the surface, but her light was dim, flickering like a soul quietly calling for help. I saw my husband holding my hand. His eyes, no longer masked behind stoicism, held guilt, love, and gratitude. Emotions he once buried now shone openly. And I no longer saw them through the lens of analysis. I saw them as souls drifting through this temporary life, trying to find their way back to one another. I began sharing my experience. At first, just small stories. Some were curious, others uncomfortable. A few stayed silent, but I didn't need them to believe. I didn't need to convince anyone. I knew that those who were ready would feel it. I changed the way I lived, not radically, not dramatically. I just began listening more deeply, speaking more gently, and loving more intentionally. I looked people in the eye when we spoke. I rewrote my emails with fewer formulas, more sincerity. I taught my students not just knowledge, but something deeper. I'd tell them, keep your heart soft. And slowly, I began reconnecting with the memory of my mother. Not my mother in flesh and blood, but the energy I had felt in the realm of light. In my most painful moments, I would sit quietly, place my hand over my chest, and whisper her name. And every time, a warm wave would rise within me. I no longer needed proof. I knew her soul was still there. I began walking slower. I listened to birdsong. I noticed the way sunlight filtered through the leaves. The things I once dismissed as trivial now felt sacred. I didn't need anything grand, only my presence. I began to see wonder in every breath. And what brought tears to my eyes more than once was when a student quietly came up to me and said, "Professor, when you look at me, I feel safe." I was no longer just a transmitter of knowledge. I wanted to become a small light that reminded others of the light within themselves. Because I knew that if each person simply illuminated their part, the entire world would be different. But I didn't stop there. I knew there were millions like me, those who had doubted, who had hurt, who had lost their way. And I wanted to share this story with them. Because maybe, just maybe, you too have felt that you are more than just flesh and bone. Maybe you've heard a call, had a dream, or sensed something you couldn't name. And maybe you've wondered, has anyone else ever felt this? The answer is yes. I have. And I want to tell you one last thing, something not to make you believe, but to help you remember. In the next part, I'll say it. A message of awakening, meant just for you. But there is something I haven't told you yet. There is a soul I carry with me always, a quiet, tender sorrow I've never named. My little sister. She passed when she was still so young. A sudden accident took my entire family on a gray afternoon. At the time, I was working at a remote research station overseas. I didn't make it home in time. Not to say goodbye. Not even to speak a single word. She was the last person who ever called me by my real name, not Dr. Cross, not Professor Evelyn, but simply, Evie. After she died, I never reopened her room. I never listened to the songs she used to hum. I was afraid. I shut it all down, like someone locking a door they know will always have cold wind howling behind it. But after returning from the realm of light, one evening I found myself sitting alone in my room, reaching for the old piano. My fingers touched the keys, and somehow, I began playing a melody that wasn't part of my conscious memory, but it was clear, vivid, unmistakably real. It was simple, playful, even a little clumsy, like a child's hand finding its way. And when I reached the chorus, an image of her came to me, clearer than it had ever been. Not like a vision or a hallucination, but like a loving presence fully, tenderly there. I didn't hear her voice, but I felt her like a soft, rounded wave of energy wrapping gently around me. I didn't cry. I smiled. And then, from the deepest part of my chest, I felt her whisper, "I was never angry at you. I was just waiting for you to remember." I let go. Fully. In that moment, I understood something I had never truly grasped before. Love is not interrupted by death. It doesn't live in the length of life, but in the depth of presence, soul to soul. She had always been there. Always. I just hadn't been open enough to feel it. And from that night on, whenever dusk falls, I play that little melody again like an echo of our reunion. No candles. No photos. Just an open heart. And I know she hears it. She still calls me Evie. She still laughs. And at last, I understand what it means to truly forgive not someone else, but myself. Because love has never been lost. It has only been waiting for us to grow quiet enough to hear it. If you've made it this far, I know you're not just anyone. You're not the kind of person who scrolls past things and forgets. You're not someone who scoffs at the invisible. Somehow, in your way, you've felt something deeper, further, more real, something you've never quite had the courage to name. Maybe you've dreamed of someone who's passed. Maybe you've sensed something was about to happen, and then it did. Maybe you've lived through a loss that nearly shattered you, but something inside you refused to let go. That something wasn't your mind. It was your soul knocking at the door. You see, I was once the kind of person who believed everything needed proof. But light doesn't need to convince the darkness of what it is. And a soul doesn't need science to prove it exists. It only waits for you to return to yourself. I'm not telling you all this so you'll believe me. I don't need that. I'm telling you so you might look within your own life. So you might pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, am I truly living? Or am I just existing, chasing things I can't take with me when I die? Imagine for a moment that one day, you get to see your entire life through the eyes of someone else. What would you see? Could you face yourself? Would you be willing to let go of the armor of being strong, knowledgeable, and in control and become the soft, honest, luminous being you were always meant to be? I'm not asking you to believe in angels or past lives. I'm just asking if you still remember how to love without condition. Do you still dare to sit beside someone without needing a reason, just because you sense their sadness? Do you dare to look a stranger in the eyes and smile, not to be smiled at in return, but so the light in you can touch the light in them? The world doesn't need more degrees. It needs more courageous hearts. The courage to forgive. The courage to turn inward. The courage to say, yes, I've been hurt, but I won't let pain make me cold. I share my story because I believe that no matter where you are on this journey, you're carrying a light inside you that has never gone out. It might be small, but remember, even a small light can dissolve the deepest darkness if you hold it long enough. Start with something simple. Listen to someone you love with your whole heart. Write a thank you note to someone you once misunderstood. Forgive someone who never apologized. And most importantly, forgive yourself. You didn't come here to be perfect. You came here to remember who you truly are, a soul in a human body, light inside flesh. And you are not alone. Even if you've lost someone, even if you've fallen 1,000 times, even if your life is covered in cracks, there is light waiting for you, just beyond every wound. I am no longer just a scientist. I am someone who remembers. And if anything I've said can light a question, a hope, or a beginning in you, then everything I went through, the death I once feared, the life I once took for granted, it was all worth it. So if you've ever had a dream, a gut feeling, or a moment you couldn't explain, don't brush it off. Be still. Listen. Because maybe, just maybe, that's your soul knocking. And I'll leave you with this simple truth. We are not human beings trying to be spiritual. We are spiritual beings learning how to be human. And if you're still searching for the meaning of life, start with love. Because it's the one language both sides understand.